So, everything works now.
Yup, it's digital and ready to go.
Good! Now let's finish this. Roll it. Hiding in plain sight, the unsung heroes of the Party Ponies of Equestria are the guests. Now at first you may think, huh? How could party guests possibly be a part of the PPE, let alone one of its principal actors? But before all four of you write this off, ask yourself this. What is a party? When you strip off all the amusement park rides, shows, music, decorations, and various party weaponry, what are you left with? A group of ponies having fun together. That's it. Without those ponies meeting up and spending time with each other, there is no party. All the attractions and trappings in the world don't mean diddly squat unless there are ponies ready, willing, and able to rise to the call of party. The same could be said of human armies. Without all the fancy vehicles and weapons, all that's left are the soldiers, men, and now in our country, women, ready, willing, and able to fight for a cause on the battlefield. These souls, ready to fight, are the infantry. While armored vehicles and big guns certainly help, all infantrymen need is a weapon and their own 2 feet to get a job done. Infantry are by far the most versatile of any type of unit. With enough men and the right equipment, they can fit into any role. But there are a few tasks in which infantry excel. One is holding on to territory. When massed together, lines of infantry can form a nearly impenetrable wall of men. And when their bodies won't effectively stop the enemy, infantry can find, build, or man positions that can withstand all but the heaviest of enemy fire. These positions and the infantry inside them can also be cleverly camouflaged, making them nigh impossible to see by anyone other than a perceptive infantryman. Second is their sense of awareness. Infantry have the best situational awareness of any combatant, making them the most reliable scouts. They can use all 5 of their senses to detect the enemy, and can find things virtually invisible to other types of fighters. Speaking of invisible, infantry are extremely stealthy. Their small size and their lack of heavy machinery makes them insanely hard to spot. So hard to find, in fact, that they must carry around special equipment like radios, smoke grenades, and flares to make themselves seen and heard when they need to be. Last but not least is infantry's presence. They certainly don't terrify the enemy as much as tanks, aircraft, or artillery do, but unlike all the previous things I mentioned, infantry don't leave. Aircraft constantly need to return to their airbases. Tanks need to get maintained at assembly areas. And artillery need to move around, either to get more ammunition or avoid shots from enemy artillery. Infantry, however, are always sticking around, and since they're basically just guys with weapons, they're far more portable than, say, a tanker which is applying 200 millimeters of armor plating. This means that infantry have the unique ability of mingling with local populations, allowing them to garner intelligence, supplies, and favor from the populace in ways inaccessible to other types of soldiers. All of these traits give infantry the ability to work extremely well in urban, jungle, or mountainous environments. Within cities, there are plenty of people to blend in with and or gather resources from, and disengaging from a fight in the city, jungle, or mountains is a matter of hiding, not running. The large amounts of cover in these areas slow down cavalry to a snail's pace, but affect infantry to a significantly lesser extent, meaning that infantry can run circles around cavalry in these environments. Plus, the large amounts of concealment allow infantry to fade into the shadows, hiding from any fight where they would be at a disadvantage. But to balance out this plethora of pros, infantry have some very serious handicaps. First off, they die a lot. All it takes to knock out an infantryman is one well-placed hit. One thrust of a sword or piece of shrapnel in the right place will take an infantryman down. Additionally, infantry usually fight right on the front lines, ahead of all other types of units, meaning that there are plenty of bullets, explosions, and angry swordsmen around to injure and kill infantry. To protect themselves, infantry can only count on the positions they build, but they can only make said positions when they have the time to set them up and the intelligence to know where to dig in. When dropped into a fight cold or on the attack, all infantrymen have in the way of protection is whatever cover they can find, and in many cases, good cover is scarce. For these reasons and more, infantry have taken the most casualties in almost every single war ever fought on Earth. Secondly, infantry move slowly. When transported by trucks or armored personnel carriers, infantry move along just as fast as the cavalry can. But when those aren't available, like for most of military history, all infantry can do is march on their own 2 feet, lagging behind the cavalry that can, in most cases, run rings around them. This lack of speed makes it hard for infantry to advance or retreat quickly, preventing them from taking advantage of most of the enemy's weak points, see World War I, or escaping cavalry that constantly tries to catch them with their pants down. Finally, they lack significant firepower. Infantry can fill almost any role well, given the right equipment, but there's usually something that can do it better. Infantry are great at taking and holding the line, finding the enemy, and neutralizing their infantry. But that's about it. There's a saying that reads, infantry win firefights, tanks win battles, and artillery wins wars. And it holds true. Infantry are important, and all armies need them. But they can't do it alone, due to both their vulnerability and their lack of damage-dealing potential. At least not without accruing massive casualties. The armor and armaments of infantry have varied wildly over the millennia of their use, ranging from bare fist and skin to fully automatic firearms and body armor. But regardless of tech, infantry still lack the speed and firepower necessary to succeed on their own, especially against almost any force using combined arms. The same can be said of all the guests that attend the parties that Pinkie and she set up. Like the infantry they mimic, not much is needed for them to contribute. All they need is their 4 hooves and be ready for a good time. Even outside of the party, guests stir their community by making and being good friends with the ponies around them, keeping their spirits up for long periods of time, even when Pinkie or Cheese aren't around. And when a big bash is around the corner, the entire town usually pitches in to make the party, decorating the town, preparing the food, and even setting up some of the attractions, keeping the town merry and gay, in both ways, for longer than both Cheese and Pinkie could combined. They even operate best in towns and cities, where there are plenty of people around to pitch in and help spread the joy. Like infantry, they hold the line, build the fortifications, and gather intelligence from the populace, because they are the populace! Sadly, the guests possess all of infantry's weaknesses. If anything in the party goes wrong, there's a high chance the guests will be injured. Even on a completely barren landscape, the guests can injure each other by fighting, trampling, or crushing each other. Add a bunch of hazardous attractions, such as roller coasters and swimming pools, each with their own state of concerns, and it's easy to see how a guest can get injured or killed in an improperly supervised event. Additionally, the party guests can't move any long distance quickly. The guests are residents of the communities they reside in. They reside by living and working in their towns. Relocating for almost any reason is a hassle. Going on a short vacation often requires days, if not weeks of preparation for those unused or unprepared for traveling, lest they encounter several logistical difficulties. Lastly, the townsfolk can keep themselves happy for a while, but not nearly as well as Cheese or Pinkie can. Pinkie and Cheese have dedicated their lives to making people happy, so it makes sense that the townsfolk, who do tons of other jobs, will be lacking in this ability by comparison. This is evidenced by their behavior while Pinkie was out of work for at most a few days. Odds are their moods would have been bounced back eventually, but morale stays low when the support has to go. The potency difference is obvious. Pinkie has her cannon, Cheese has his tank, but do you see any of the townsfolk carrying party rifles? No. Even if you had this, pretty underwhelming compared to this. Oh, I forgot my ear protection! With that destruction of my eardrums, we have found our missing piece to combine our puzzle. Human armies soften up positions with artillery, overrun them with cavalry, then capture and hold them with infantry. The party ponies of Equestria do the same. Pinkie Pie, the artillery, constantly keeps ponies around her smiling with party salvos each week. Cheese, the cavalry, completely overwhelms town after town with carnivals and parades that are impossible to miss. And the guests, the infantry of the party army, make, retain, and share fond memories of these events with their friends, preserving morale while Cheese and Pinkie rearm and refit for their next gigs. The entire organization, from the guests, to the party ponies that support them are using military tactics to plan and participate in their parties. The connection, although tenuous at first, starts to gain strength with some digging. Don't you all agree? Even if you don't, it doesn't matter. From this day forth, I'm running round-the-clock surveillance on the party ponies of Equestria in anyone they're affiliated with. We must prepare ourselves for the day when the PPE or some other villain takes the military organization the PPE has developed and used it for its originally intended purpose. Have I made myself clear? Good. You're all dismissed. Well, that was fun. Back to work.